When we think of ancient cities, our minds often journey to Rome or Egypt, yet far to the south, another story unfolded. This is the story of Great Zimbabwe, a monumental city of stone. The ruins challenge assumptions about Africa's past, revealing a complex society. This essay will explore the first cities of southern Africa, with Great Zimbabwe as our centerpiece. Colonial historians once dismissed the idea that local Africans could construct such sophisticated structures, denying the heritage of the Shona people. Today, archaeology has proven them wrong. The stones tell a story of indigenous innovation and a flourishing culture. We will peel back the layers of time to understand how these remarkable cities came to be. Then, we will turn our attention to Great Zimbabwe, imagine its society at its peak, and uncover the sources of its immense wealth and influence. It is a human story of ambition and creativity. The landscape of southern Africa is one of dramatic contrasts. For millennia, this land was home to hunter-gatherer societies. A great change began with the arrival of new people from the north, bringing farming skills. This shift to a settled agricultural lifestyle was the first step toward building cities. Specialists emerged, and cattle became a symbol of wealth and power. This accumulation of wealth were the foundational elements of urban life. At sites like Mapungubwe, archaeologists found evidence of a stratified society. Mapungubwe was a precursor to Great Zimbabwe. These early centers were connected by extensive trade networks. This trade brought immense wealth, fueling the growth of these cities. It was within this context that the stage was set for the rise of Great Zimbabwe. The story of southern Africa's first cities is inseparable from cattle. Cattle were the ultimate measure of wealth, power, and social standing. Herds of cattle represented a living bank account, providing milk, meat, and hides. The size of a man's herd determined his influence and ability to secure alliances. This economic model, the central cattle pattern, reshaped how people lived. Settlements were designed around cattle, with the chief residing at the center. The control of cattle led to the rise of powerful leaders who could reward followers and demand loyalty. This concentration of power was a critical step towards state formation. The ownership of cattle drove the first stages of urbanization in southern Africa. They were the architects of the first kingdoms. This system created the stability necessary for the construction of the first stone-walled settlements. As farming and herding communities flourished, distinct cultural traditions emerged. One significant culture was the leopards Kopje, ancestors of the great Zimbabwe builders. They were master farmers and metallurgists who innovated societal structures. Settlements show a separation between rulers and the ruled, with chiefs residing on elevated kopjes. The leopards Kopje people built substantial stone enclosures, demarcating elite living spaces and adding to their prestige. This period saw an expansion of trade, with communities strategically located to control the flow of goods. They traded gold, ivory, and hides for exotic items. This combination of social stratification, architectural skills, and trade created ideal conditions. The leopards Kopje culture was the foundation for Great Zimbabwe. Before Great Zimbabwe, the Kingdom of Mapungubwe rose in the Limpopo River Valley, flourishing from 1220 to 1290 AD. Its capital, atop a steep hill, represents southern Africa's first city-state. The name, Hill of the Jackals, speaks to its mystique. Here we see a division between leadership and populace central to later kingdoms. Society was rigidly stratified. The king lived in seclusion on the hill. Mapungubwe's wealth was staggering, built on trade routes. A golden rhinoceros was found in royal graves. Gold was traded for luxury goods, connecting Mapungubwe to a global network. Mapungubwe's reign was short-lived. Climate change may have undermined the kingdom. Power shifted north. The people migrated, carrying their ideas with them. They created the template for a kingdom, perfected by Great Zimbabwe. As Mapungubwe declined, a new Shona dynasty rose on the northern plateau, founding Great Zimbabwe, the venerated House of Stone. This fertile region, rich in rainfall and grasslands, was ideal for agriculture and cattle, supporting a growing population. Great Zimbabwe's founders chose a site among granite hills, securing natural defenses and abundant building material. More crucially, the city commanded gold trade routes to the Swahili coast, allowing its rulers to amass wealth and power. Drawing on Lepid's Kopje traditions and Mapungubwe's political model, they built a kingdom larger and more influential than any before. Construction began around 1100 AD, but the city flourished in the 13th and 14th centuries, expanding into a sprawling metropolis. Masons perfected dry stone techniques, fitting massive granite blocks without mortar to create soaring, curving walls. The city's layout reflected its social order: the king in the hill complex, or great enclosure, elites in stone compounds, and thousands in clay and thatch huts in the valley. At its peak, up to 18,000 people lived here, their city a testament to political power, religious belief, and social order, etched in stone. Great Zimbabwe was not just a settlement, but a symbol of enduring African ingenuity and authority. The hill complex, Great Zimbabwe's oldest and most sacred site, crowns a granite hill, echoing the Acropolis of Athens. Here the first kings lived in seclusion, physically and spiritually elevated above their people. Stone walls blend seamlessly with boulders, creating a labyrinthine, defensible sanctuary accessible only by steep ascent. Archaeologists found royal residences and ritual spaces, including 8 iconic soapstone birds, symbols of kingship and now national emblems. The king, both ruler and spiritual intermediary, performed vital rain and fertility rituals here, believed to ensure the kingdom's prosperity. Only trusted advisors and priests entered the inner sanctum, reinforcing the king's mystical authority. Even as the royal residents moved to the valley, the hill complex remained the spiritual heart and likely royal burial ground. Its imposing presence reminded all of the kingdom's sacred foundations and ancestral connections. The stones of the hill complex speak not just of power, but of a deep, enduring link to the land and the ancestors. This Acropolis was the soul of Great Zimbabwe, where stone, spirit, and sovereignty met. As Great Zimbabwe grew, its rulers built the Great Enclosure, the largest ancient stone structure in sub-Saharan Africa. Not a fortress, but a monumental display of royal authority, it served as the administrative center and royal residence. Its outer wall, over 250 meters around and up to 11 meters high, was built from 1 million hand-shaped granite blocks, no mortar required. The craftsmanship and scale showcased the king's wealth and command over labor. Inside, courtyards and living quarters surrounded the enigmatic conical tower, a flawless dry stone structure whose purpose remains debated. Some see it as a symbol of royal provision or fertility. All agree it signified enduring dynastic power. The Great Enclosure marked a shift. Royal power became more visible, political, and central to city life. Here, the king held audiences, administered the state, and displayed the wealth flowing from vast trade networks. This was the political and social epicenter of the kingdom, a masterpiece declaring the supremacy of Great Zimbabwe's rulers. The Great Enclosure endures as a testament to ambition, organization, and the legacy of stone. Most of Great Zimbabwe's 18,000 residents lived outside the stone enclosures, in densely packed daga huts of clay and thatch. Family compounds formed a sprawling urban landscape sustained by farming, cattle herding, and specialized crafts. Agricultural surpluses and royal cattle herds fed the city, freeing many to become artisans, potters, blacksmiths, and especially goldsmiths. Gold, mined nearby, was crafted into jewelry and luxury goods, fueling international trade. Caravans brought gold, ivory, and hides to market, exchanged for glass beads, Chinese porcelain, and textiles from across the Indian Ocean. Trade enriched the elite and brought new ideas, making Great Zimbabwe a cosmopolitan hub. Society was strictly hierarchical, king and royals at the top, followed by aristocrats, merchants, artisans, priests, and finally, commoners. Religious belief, control of wealth, and the city's monumental architecture reinforced this order. The city's daily life was vibrant, diverse, and deeply connected to both local tradition and global exchange. Great Zimbabwe's people built a thriving metropolis, its heartbeat echoing in stone and story. The 14th and early 15th centuries marked Great Zimbabwe's golden age, its power, wealth, and population at their peak. The kingdom dominated regional trade, controlling gold and ivory from the interior to the Swahili coast. Caravans carried these treasures to ports like Sofala, where they were exchanged for beads, ceramics, and textiles from Arabia, India, and China. This commerce funded monumental building and a lavish royal court, while also binding a network of subordinate chiefdoms through patronage. The king's monopoly on foreign goods made him the ultimate source of prestige and authority. Economic leverage, not just military might, held the diverse kingdom together. Wealth supported a specialized society. Administrators, priests, and skilled artisans thrived alongside farmers and herders. Goldsmiths, potters, and weavers added to the kingdom's cultural richness and international reputation. At its height, Great Zimbabwe was a dynamic, cosmopolitan metropolis. Its influence felt across continents. The city's legacy endures, built on the glitter of gold and the strength of stone. The wealth flowing into Great Zimbabwe was visibly translated into stone. The city's architecture reached its zenith, including the Great Enclosure. The scale and sophistication were unparalleled. Masons perfected their dry stone technique, enabling them to build higher walls. It broadcasted a message of supreme power. The Great Enclosure showcased the kingdom's capabilities at their peak. The ability to manage so many workers speaks volumes about the state's capacity. The finished walls were a testament to the skill of the masons. The focus was on creating a capital worthy of a great empire. The city's layout was a map of power. The legacy is the awe-inspiring ruins we see today. They used granite to build a capital that would project their legacy far into the future. At its height, Great Zimbabwe was the political, religious, and economic nucleus of a vast kingdom. The king held sway over an area similar in size to modern-day Scotland. This kingdom was a network of smaller chiefdoms that paid allegiance to Great Zimbabwe. The city was the heart, and its authority was the lifeblood of the entire state. As a sacred leader, the king was responsible for rituals ensuring rainfall and prosperity. His control over gold production gave him immense wealth. Farmers produced food surpluses to feed the city. In return, the central government provided stability and protection. The capital was a source of pride and a focal point for the entire kingdom. The style of stone architecture was adopted by smaller centers. These smaller settlements acted as regional administrative posts. At its pinnacle, the city was a true imperial capital. No empire lasts forever. By the mid-15th century, after a century of power, Great Zimbabwe began its slow decline. The once bustling capital saw its population dwindle, and by around 1450 AD, the city was largely abandoned. The reasons for this decline lie in a combination of environmental pressures and economic shifts. Supporting a large population strained local resources, leading to deforestation and overgrazing. Simultaneously, a shift in trade patterns, with gold sources depleting, led to new routes emerging. As economic focus shifted, Great Zimbabwe's strategic importance waned, weakening the king's grip. Political instability may have also played a role, with ambitious figures seeking independence. As Great Zimbabwe's influence faded, its people migrated, carrying their culture. The kingdom split into successor states. One powerful kingdom was Mutapa, founded in the 15th century by Prince Nyatsimba Mutota. He led his followers north from Great Zimbabwe into the Zambezi River Valley, seeking salt and control of the gold trade. The Kingdom of Mutapa grew into a vast empire. Mutota and his successors, the Mwene Mutapa, were formidable military leaders. At its peak, the state stretched from the Kalahari Desert to the Indian Ocean coast. The kingdom inherited political and religious structures from Great Zimbabwe. The economy was built on agriculture and control of gold, copper, and ivory trade. In the 16th century, the Portuguese arrived, seeking to control the trade, marking the beginning of a complex relationship. As the Mutapa kingdom rose, another powerful state emerged, the Kingdom of Butua. Its capital, Khami, flourished from 1450 to 1650 AD, becoming the new center of power. Khami controlled the region's cattle wealth and the remaining gold trade. The architecture evolved from Great Zimbabwe, using dry stone walling to create terraced platforms. Retaining walls were decorated with checkerboard and herringbone patterns. Society at Khami was hierarchical, with the king living on the highest terraces. The kingdom thrived on cattle and gold trade with the Portuguese. Archaeological finds include Chinese Ming porcelain and Portuguese ceramics. The Kingdom of Butua eventually fell in the late 17th century to the Rosvi Empire. The Rosvi continued the stone-building traditions, adapting the Khami style. This dispersal of power led to new cities and dynasties, adding to the story of southern Africa's stone kingdoms. The ruins of Great Zimbabwe, Khami, and Mapungubwe stand today as silent yet powerful monuments to a remarkable past. A profound sense of mystery still clings to these ancient stones. They pose questions that we may never be able to answer with absolute certainty. The absence of a written language means that the deepest layers of their beliefs remain shrouded in speculation. This enduring mystery is part of what makes these sites so utterly captivating. The flesh and blood of the civilization, its songs, its stories, its philosophies, are largely lost to time, acknowledging that some secrets will forever be held by the silent, imposing walls. This element of the unknown is what continues to draw scholars, tourists, and dreamers to these ancient cities, keeping its magic intact for future generations to ponder. The story of Great Zimbabwe is almost as dramatic as the city itself. For much of the colonial era, settlers refused to believe it was built by local African people, concocting baseless theories. This denied the indigenous population their heritage, justifying colonial rule. Archaeologists and African nationalism challenged this, proving local origins linked to the Shona people. The ruins transformed into a symbol of African achievement. Zimbabwe was chosen for the new nation, linking it to this pre-colonial past. The soapstone bird became the national emblem. Great Zimbabwe became the soul of a new nation. Today, it's a UNESCO site, a testament to cultural heritage and a powerful story of reclamation. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe and its sister cities, Mapungubwe and Khami, extends far beyond their impressive stone walls. These early urban centers fundamentally shaped the course of Southern African history for centuries. They established a powerful model of statehood, combining sacred kingship, control over long-distance trade, and a stratified social structure. This template for organizing society and projecting power did not disappear when the cities were abandoned. It was carried by migrating peoples and adapted by the successor kingdoms of Mutapa and Butua, and by later groups like the Rosvi. The idea of a large, centralized state had been firmly planted in the region's political DNA. The economic impact was equally profound. For centuries, these kingdoms were the primary engine of the southern African economy, connecting the interior of the continent to a global network of trade that stretched across the Indian Ocean. They developed and controlled the mining of gold and the trade in ivory, creating immense wealth that funded their societies and their architectural ambitions. This integration into a world economy had lasting consequences, drawing the attention of foreign powers like the Portuguese and forever changing the political and economic landscape of the region. The trade routes pioneered by these early kingdoms laid the groundwork for future interactions between Africa and the wider world. Culturally, the legacy is just as significant. The architectural tradition of dry stone masonry is the most visible inheritance, a unique African innovation that flourished for over 500 years. The artistic achievements, from the golden rhino of Mapungubwe to the enigmatic birds of Great Zimbabwe, are sources of immense cultural pride and artistic inspiration today. These artifacts are not merely historical objects. They are masterpieces that speak to a sophisticated aesthetic and a rich symbolic world. They challenge outdated perceptions of Africa's past and stand as proof of the continent's deep history of artistic and cultural innovation, rivaling that of any other ancient civilization. Ultimately, the story of Great Zimbabwe is a story of human ambition, creativity, and resilience. It is a powerful reminder that great civilizations have risen and fallen all across the globe, not just in the traditional centers of the ancient world. The stone ruins that dot the southern African landscape are echoes of this greatness. They are a vital part of the world's shared human heritage, offering timeless lessons about the relationship between society, environment, power, and trade. As we continue to study and preserve these magnificent sites, we ensure that the voices of Southern Africa's first great cities will continue to resonate for generations to come.